tired of pretending that we know what we're talking about and listening to it. Just kidding. We'll do the best we can. This is a good foundational start, not the end of all things. So, we're on the superstructure and the impact of the base. We've been talking about economic necessities. Let's see here, going back a little bit. Relations to the reduction forces, how the material base brings on the superstructure, and how the superstructure creates the state, the material conditions, capitalist relations to the state, and the material base relation to the state, and the working class too. So we're still on the superstructure base. Let's get into it. Number 2, the superstructure's impact on the base. So we were talking about the base, and now we're talking about the superstructure impact. Superstructure exists as a reflection of the economic base and arises from the need to develop the economic base. Consciousness is a reflection of the material world, which arises from the material process within human brains. I have a small picture on here. So the material world, we see it. It affects the brain by thinking.
I thought I did the pictures.
Materialist dialect, we believe in that. What's up?
I was getting ready to do the
I hear
picture.
what you said. Oh yeah, my bad. Consciousness, oh yeah, I already know that. Consciousness itself is a reflection of matter. Consciousness reflects the process of the human brain, as well as the experience of data gathered from the material world. This reflection is a matter in the discussion is discussed in part 1. Okay, that's what we're doing. Similarly, the superstructure of society is a reflection of the material/economic base of human society. Superstructural elements such as social consciousness forms and social institutions arise from the conditions of and are determined by the material base of society. Lenin wrote in the 3 sources and 3 component parts of Marxism. Just as man's knowledge reflects nature, i.e. developing matter, which exists independently of him, so man's social knowledge, i.e. his various views and doctrines, philosophical, religious, political, and so forth, reflects the economic system of society. Political institutions are a superstructure on the economic foundation. We see, for example, that the various political forms of modern European states serve to strengthen the domination of the bourgeoisie over the proletariat. Reflections are always mutual. It is impossible for one subject to change another subject without being changed itself. However, the material base determines the form of the superstructure of human society, and so human society exists, in essence, as a reflection of the material base, which determines its existence. Engels, in the letter to Joseph Blanche in 1890, wrote, "We make our history ourselves, but, in the first place, under very definite assumptions and conditions. Among these, the economic ones are ultimately decisive, but the political ones, etc. And indeed, even the traditions which haunt human minds also play a part, although not a decisive one. The superstructure is relatively independent and often impacts back on the economic base of society. The superstructure of society is relatively independent, quote unquote, of the material base in a way that is similar to how human consciousness is relatively independent of the material world. As Engels wrote in the letter to Conrad Schmidt in 1890, the economic movement upon the whole asserts itself, but it is affected by the reaction of the relatively independent political movement, which it itself had set up. This political movement is on the one hand state power, on the other the opposition which comes to life at the same time with it. So there is reflected in the struggle between government and opposition, the struggle between already existing and contending classes, but again in an inverted form, no longer direct but indirect. Not a class struggle, but as a struggle for political principles. So inverted is this reflection, that it required thousands of years of discovery that was behind it. Engels is saying here that the struggle, conflicts, contradictions, and resulting developments which occur within the superstructure of society occur more or less unconsciously. That is to say, the participants in these struggles do not typically realize that they are engaging in class struggle. Engels further explains this concept using the legal system of the state as an example. The reflection of the economic relation as principles of law is necessarily also an inverted one. The process takes place without the participants becoming conscious of it. The jurist images that he is operating with the prior proposition, while the latter are, after all, only reflections of the economic process. And so everything remains standing on its head. This inverted reflex, so long as it is not recognized for what it constitute, what we call ideological conceptions, that is enabled to exert a reactive influence on the economic base, and within certain limits of modifying it, seems to me to be self-evident. Foundations of the law of inheritance, corresponding stages in the development of the family being presupposed, are economic. Nonetheless, it would be very hard to prove that, e.g., the absolute freedom and testamentary disposition of England and the strongly restricted rights of France in all particulars have only economic causes, yet both methods react in very significant ways upon the economic system, in that they influence the disruption of wealth.
The distribution of
In other words, lawyers and judges and other state agents operate on behalf of the bourgeoisie, serving the interests of the bourgeois state, without realizing that they are doing so. This means that political struggle by an oppressed class can lead to impacts in the economic base which might benefit that class. In the letter to L. Blanche, Engels clarified that the relationship between social being and social consciousness is not a mechanical relationship, and that economic factors are not the only factors which absolutely and unilaterally determine the development of society. According to the materialist conception of history, the factor which is in the last instance decisive in history is the production and reproduction of actual life. More than this, neither Marx nor myself ever claimed. If now someone has distorted the meaning in such a way that the economic factor is the only decisive one, this man has changed the above proposition into an abstract, absurd phrase which says nothing. The economic situation is the base, but the different parts of the structure, the political forms of the class struggle and its results, constitution established by the various class after the battle is won, forms the law and even the reflection of all these real struggles in the brains of the participants. Political theories, judicial, philosophical, religious opinions, and their further development into dogmatic systems. All this exercises also its influence on the development of the historical struggles, and in cases determines their form. It is under the mutual influence of all these factors that, rejecting the infinitesimal number of incidental occurrence, that is, things and happenings whose ultimate sense is so far removed and of so little probability that we can consider them non-existent and can ignore them, that the economical movement is ultimately carried out. Otherwise, the application of the theory to any period of history would be easier than the solution many simple equations. We ourselves make our histories, but primarily under presuppositions and conditions which are very well determined. But even the political traditions, nay, even the traditions that man creates in his head, plays an important part, even if not the decisive one. Hold on a second, just looking back. Okay. This is a refutation of mechanical materialism and an important reminder that the law of the relationship between social beings and social consciousness, properly understanding and applying this law is especially important in the theory and practice of scientific socialism, because developing class consciousness, carrying out social revolution, and building a socialist dictatorship of the proletariat are all vital prerequisites to fulfilling the historical mission of the working class. As Engels asked Conrad Schmidt, or else, why are we struggling for political dictatorship of the proletariat if political power has no economic effect? The impact of the superstructure on the base is revealed in many ways. Superstructure consists of many components which have different positions, roles, and characteristics. These superstructural components determine how the superstructure impacts back on the base. However, if the superstructure was a state as a component, then all other superstructural components must rely on the state in order to have a strong impact on the base. The state is the superstructural component that has the most direct and the strongest impact on the base of society. As discussed in annotation 16, the superstructural components of society include social consciousness forms and their corresponding socio-political institutions. A class society, the state is the social institution which has the most direct impact on the economic base, and this plays a tremendous role in securing the position of which every class controls the state as the ruling class of society. States have not always existed in every human society. It is only with the development of class society that states have developed to stabilize class antagonism and to serve the agenda of the ruling class. As Engels explains in Origins of the Family, the private property of the state. The state then has not existed from all eternity. There have been societies that did without it, that had no idea of the state and state power. At certain stages of economic development, which was necessarily bound up with the split of society into classes, the state became a necessity owing to this split. That's why we have to get rid of the state. It's important. The same text, Engels gives a definition of the state in the relations to class conflict. Hold on a second, bring someone else up. Okay. The state is a product of society at a certain stage of development. It is the admission that this society has become entangled in the insoluble contradictions with itself, that it has split into irreconcilable antagonisms, which it is powerless to dispel. Of course, another restriction. What the fuck? TikTok, you allow this shit to happen on other people's fucking panels. Let's dispel. When in order that these antagonisms, these classes with conflicting economic interests might not consume themselves and society in fruitless struggles, it became necessary to have the power seemingly standing above society. That it would
calm down.
keep it within the bounds of order. And this power arisen out of society, what places itself above it.
Okay, well, I'm on a live, so.
And alienating itself more and more from it is the state. Lenin adds to this definition in State and Revolution.
Those are boxes.
The state is a product of and a manifestation of irreconcilability.
No problem. You can throw that one with it and
class
throw them all
and
at
antagonism. State arises where, when, and insofar as class antagonisms objectively cannot be reconciled. And controversially, the existence of the state powers that the class
Proves.
antagonisms are irreconcilable.
You want cuddle?
Engels further explains that the state exists as a cohesive force which allows one
Coercive.
class to subjugate another through violence, which is organized. This organized violence consists both not merely of armed men, but also of material adjuncts, prisons, and institutions of coercion of all kinds. Because states arose from class struggle explicitly to serve the agenda of the ruling class through organized violence, it stands to reason that the end of society will ultimately result in the end of the state as a component of the superstructure of society. Negation of capitalism will mark the end of class society, Engels explains. We are now rapidly approaching a stage in development of production at which the existence of these classes not only will have ceased to be a necessity, but will become a positive hindrance to production. They will fall as they rose at an earlier stage. Along with them, the state will inevitably fall. Society which will recognize production on the basis of a free and equal association of the producer will put the whole machinery of the state where it will then belong, into the museum of antiquities, by the side of the spinning wheel and the bronze axe. In Anti-Düring, Engels explains how the workers will bring about the end of state and class society through social revolution. The proletariat seizes from state power, turns the means of production into state property to begin with, but thereby it abolished itself as the proletariat, abolishing all class distinctions and class antagonisms, abolishing also the state as a state. Society thus far operating amid class antagonism needed the state that is an organization of a particular exploited class for the maintenance of its external conditions of production, and therefore, especially for the purpose of foreseeably keeping the exploited classes in the conditions of oppression determined by the given mode of production, slavery, serfdom, or bondage, wage labor. The state has the official representative of society as a whole, its concentration in a visible corporation.
You make me yell.
But it was this only insofar as it was the state of that class which itself represented for its own time. Society as a whole, in ancient times, the state of slave-owning citizens in the Middle Ages, the feudal nobility, in our own time, the bourgeoisie, then at least it becomes a real representative of the whole of society. It renders itself unnecessary as soon as there is no longer any social class to be held in subjection, as soon as class rule and the individual struggle for existence based upon the present anarchy of production, with the collision and excesses arises from this struggle are removed. Nothing more remains to be held in subjection. Nothing necessitating a special cohesive force, a state, the first act by which the state really comes forward as a representative of the whole of society. The taking possession of the means of production in the name of society is also its last independent act as a state. State interference in social relation becomes, in one dominant domain after another, superfluous, and then dies down of itself. The government of persons is replaced by the administration of things and by the conduct of processes of production. The state is not abolished, it withers away. This gives the measure of the value of the phrase a free people state, both as to its justifiable use for a long time from the agitational point of view, and as to its ultimate scientific inefficiency, and also of the so-called anarchists demand that the state abolished overnight. That's the difference between Marx and anarchists. We believe that the state will be gone and no longer needed. It's how we go about doing it that makes it different between anarchists and communists. Communists still believe in a stateless, classless, moneyless society. The impact of the superstructure components can affect the base in different ways, and different superstructural components may even contradict one another, impact base in opposing directions. This reflects the different and opposing interests of different classes within society. Some superstructural components will reinforce and maintain the current economic base, while other superstructural components will struggle to abandon the current economic base in favor of establishing a different economic base, in other words, a different social regime. Human society is not homogeneous. Is it homogeneous? And all, and not all human beings. What?
Yeah, you had it.
Okay. And not all human beings want to move society in the same direction, even within the same socio-economic class. As such, within given human society, superstructural components will develop to represent the contradicting interests of different groups of people within and between classes. Here we go, we got a picture. The picture! Okay, so we have class struggle under capitalism. In the middle, you have the state, the worker party, means of production, bourgeoisie party. And these little things, you have the control. Whoever controls the state controls the means of production. Right now, the bourgeoisie controls the state, so they control the means of production. And the workers control the state, and they insert the dictatorship of the proletariat and control the means of production. All right, the working class struggle to build state power through social revolution. The working class struggle to benefit from the means of production, going into the capitalists. The ruling class struggle to maintain state power through bourgeoisie parties. The ruling, like the Democrats, the liberals, all of them, the bourgeoisie parties. The ruling class struggles to benefit from the means of production. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Under capitalism, class struggle for state power and for the benefit from the means of production, primary institution which humans have developed, the class struggle is the political party. Class struggle is a dialectical contradiction which occurs between various classes as defined by relations of production within class society at a certain stage of development. These objective contradictions, which occur in the material base of society, also manifest in the superstructure, regardless of whether the human beings involved in the class struggle are aware of their class position, as it pertains to the material base or not. Class struggle is the process through which different classes labor and fight to obtain more benefits from the productive forces of society. Under feudalism, for example, there was a wide variety of superstructural components representing the different classes, church and monasteries, to represent the clergy, craft guilds, to represent the craftsmen, households consisting of servants and military forces, to represent nobles, and so on. Under capitalism, we can see that capitalist superstructural components exist primarily to advance the interests of the ruling bourgeois class. There also exists petty bourgeois superstructual
You'll get it
elements
when they come in, I
to
guess.
further the
Because
interests
the cat's
of
over
the
there, and I
class
don't want the
and
cat to be
working
like,
class
ooh, what's this?
and working class structural elements to further the interests of the proletariat.
Yeah, she will
Many
be.
superstructural institutions claim to represent the working class, yet, in truth, serve the interests of the bourgeoisie. There are also some superstructural components that seek to return back to previous relations of production.
I have
For
to go to the
example,
bathroom
some
so
modern
bad.
nations have political parties which seek to restore the
Ooh, I've
strength
got
of
some
the
space.
monarchy
All right, head
and
out so
other
I can get out of the
remnant
bed.
classes from the feudal era. The most advanced proletarian superstructural elements seek to overthrow capitalist rules and to institutions new relations of production. To do this, Workers must build worker-controlled political parties, which can build power for the proletariat and eventually seize control of the means of production through the construction of the workers' state through social revolution. The impact of the superstructure on the base can take place in a positive or negative direction, depending on how suitable or unsuitable the superstructural components are to the development of the economy. If the superstructural components are suitable to the economic development, they will have a positive impact. On the contrary, if they are not suitable, they will have a negative impact by inhibiting and sabotaging economic development. As Engels wrote in the letter to Conrad Schmidt in 1890, the reaction of the state power upon economic development can take a threefold form. It can run in the same direction, and then the tempo of development becomes accelerated. It can buck up against that development, in which case today in every large nation the state power is sure to go to smash for good, for it can block economic development along some direction and lay down its path along others. Engels' prediction that large nation states which bucked up against and resisted economic development would, quote, go to smash for good, proving precedents. Today, there are no large nation states left which have not progressed on from the feudal mode of production. All such remnant states, such as the feudal state of China and the Ottoman Empire, and Russia, all which managed to last unto the 20th century, have indeed gone to smash and been replaced with a higher stage of mode of production. However, even though the impact of the superstructure on the base takes place in many ways and on many levels, the superstructure cannot play a decisive role in determining the base of society, nor, by extension, of society in general. The base of society will always determine the ultimate direction of society, development based upon economic necessity. Although the superstructure and its components include political parties, political consciousness, and other forms of organized political activity, cannot determine the material base of society, it is important to understand that they can impact the base significantly and bring about changes which benefit an oppressed class in significant ways. These impacts becomes especially pronounced when productive forces and relations of production are no longer compatible with each other, as is the case presently under capitalism. Because the productive forces are incompatible with capitalist relations of production, it's possible for workers to engage in social revolution, to seize the means of production, build a state which they control, impose the dictatorship of the proletariat, and eventually end capitalism and class society altogether. This is the historical mission of the working class and the primary subject in the study of scientific socialism. The subjective role of the masses and of the individuals in social revolution is discussed in detail. Chapter 3. Social being determines social consciousness and the relative independence of social consciousness. Do you have any questions before I move on to chapter 3?
No, because I kind of forgot to take notes.
That's okay. No questions yet?
No, not yet.
All right, cool. Anybody else in the comments who has been listening? Barely any of us have been listening. There's only 3 of us. Anybody in the comments have anything to add, question, or anything like that? Doesn't look like it. All right. In the system of historical materialism, the fundamental law is that social being determines social consciousness. This principle relates to the fundamental opposition between materialist and idealist worldviews of society. Social being and social consciousness are defined in more detail in the next section. In short, social being can be understood as all the material aspects of human society, while social consciousness refers to to all the ways in which human consciousness manifests in society. And the fundamental law of the historical materialism that social being determines the social consciousness is rooted in dialectical materialism, understanding of the relationship between matter and consciousness. Lenin started from the principle of social being determines social consciousness when introducing Marx's system of historical materialist views. The realization of the inconsistency, incompleteness, and one-sidedness of the old materialist conceived Marx of the necessity of bringing the science of society into harmony with the materialist foundation and the reconstructing it thereupon. Since materialism is in general explains consciousness as the outcome of being and not conversely, then materialism is as applied to social life of humanity has to explain social consciousness as the outcome of social being. Here is an expanded version of the above quoted passage from the materialist conception of history from Karl Marx by Lenin. Here we go. The realization of the inconsistency, incompleteness, and one-sidedness of the old materialism convinced Marx of the necessity of bringing the science of society into harmony with the materialist foundation and the reconstruction it thereupon. Since materialism is generally explained consciousness as the outcome of being, and not conversely, then materialism as applied to the social life of mankind has to explain social consciousness as the outcome of social being. As Marx writes in Capital Volume 1, technology discloses man's mode of dealing with nature and an immediate process of production by which he sustains his life, and thereby also lays bare to the mode of formation of his social relations and of the material conception that flow from them. In the preface of his contributions to the critique of political economy, Marx gives an integral formulation of the fundamental principles of materialism as applied to human society and its history in the following words, quote, in a social production of their life, men enter into definite relations that are indispensable and independent of their will, relations of production which correspond to a definite stage of development of their material productive forces. The sum total of these relations of production constitutes the economic structure of society, the real foundation of which rises a legal and political superstructure, and to which corresponds definite forms of social consciousness. The mode of production of the material life condition, the social, political, and intellectual life process in general. It is not the consciousness of men that determine their being, but on the contrary, their social being that determines their consciousness. At a certain stage of their development, the material productive forces of society come in conflict with their existing relations of production, or what is but a legal expression for the same thing, with property relations within which they have been at work hitherto. From forms of development of the productive forces, these relations turn into their fetters. Then begins an epoch of social revolution, which the change of the economic foundation, the entire immense superstructure, is more or less rapidly transformed. In considering such transformation, a distinction should always be made between the material transformation of the economic conditions of production, which can be determined with the precision of natural science, and the legal, political, religious aesthetics of philosophic, in short, ideological forms in which men become conscious of this conflict and fight it out. Just as our opinion of the individual is not based on what he thinks of himself, so we cannot judge of such a period of transformation by its own consciousness. On the contrary, this consciousness must be explained rather from the contradictions of material life, from the existing conflict between the social productive forces and the relations of production. A broad outline, Asiatic incidents,
It's fine.
feudal and modern bourgeoisie modes of production can be designated as progressive epochs in the economic formation of society. The discovery of the materialist conception of history, or more correctly,
Sorry.
the consistent
Yeah, just turn you
continuation
down. You'll be
and
alright.
extension of
You're not
materialism
really missing much.
into the domain of social phenomena remove the two chief shortcomings in earlier historical theories. In the first place, the latter at best examined only ideological motives in the historical activities of human beings, without investigating the origins of those motives or ascertaining the objective laws governing the development of the system of social relations, or seeing the root of these relations and the degree of development reached by material production. In the second place, the earlier theories did not embrace the activities of the masses of the population, whereas historical materialism made it possible for the first time to study with scientific accuracy social conditions of the life of the masses and the change in those conditions. At best, pre-Marxist sociology and historiography brought forth an accumulation of raw facts, collecting at random, and the description of individual aspects of historical process. By examining the totality of the opposing tendencies, by reducing them to precisely defendable conditions of life and production of the various classes of society, by discarding subjectivism and arbitrariness in the choice of particular dominant ideas or in its interpretation, and by revealing, oh my gosh, this is a long one, that without exception, all ideas and all various tendencies stem from the conditions of the material force of production. Marxism indicated the way to an all-embracing and comprehensive study of the process of the rise, development, and decline of socio-economic system. People make their own history, but what determines the motives of people, of the masses of people, i.e., what is the sum total of all these clashes in the mass of human society? What are the objective conditions of production of material life that form the basis of all man's historical activity? What is the law of development of these conditions? To all these, Marx drew attention and indicated the way to the scientific study of history as a single process which will all its immense variety, contradictoriness, is governed by definite laws. That was a lot, wasn't it? Yeah.
I don't have many notes. Do you want me to go over the notes by section or just by chapter?
It's up to you, but I'm going to go into the next section.
So I guess that
beings
means
determine
no.
social conduct. me saying it's up to you means no?
Yeah, because I was asking, because that was the first section.
You said you have no notes.
Whatever, dude.
Right? Right? Hello? You there?
Yeah, I just told you I had notes. That's why I was talking about it. I had notes in that one section. Wait. Are we going to go over it section by section or chapter by chapter?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to read a whole chapter today.
So should we go over it section by section?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
It'd be easier.
So you're saying this is the end of the section?
Yeah, because you can tell because it says 1. It starts a new section.
Okay. What did you want to go over?
Okay, so I thought I just copied the most important notes. That was all I copied, so it's not much. In the system of historical materialism, a fundamental law is that social being determines social consciousness. Social being can be understood as all the material aspects of human society, while social consciousness refers to all the ways in which human consciousness manifests in society. And then who was this? Oh, this was Karl Marx by Lenin. So this is the book about Marx by Lenin. And I thought, it is not the consciousness of men that determines their being, but on the contrary, their social being that determines their consciousness. The discovery of the materialist conception of history, or more correctly, the consistent continuation and extension of materialism into the domain of social phenomena, removed the two chief shortcomings in earlier historical theories. Historical materialism made it possible for the first time to study with scientific accuracy the social conditions of the life of the masses. And to all those, Marx drew attention and indicated the way to a scientific study of history as a single process, which with all its immense variety and contradictoriness is governed by definite laws. That's it.
Thank you. Social being determines social consciousness. The definition of social being and social consciousness. The term social being refers to the material life of the material conditions of society. Fundamental factors of social being includes mode of material production, factors belonging to natural conditions, geographical circumstances, population. These factors exist in a dialectical unity, interacting with each other and creating conditions for the survival and development of society, in which the mode of material production is the most fundamental factor.
Yeah.
Are you going to show the picture?
Oh, you back over here?
The term
I'm here.
material base describes relationships which are involved
Okay.
with material production processes of human society. Social being, material base means of production, human labor, natural resources, relations of production, natural conditions, geographical circumstances, population, all other material aspects of humanity. Social being encompasses the material base and all other material aspects of human society. Social being is a broader term which encompasses not only the material base, but also all other material factors which determine and impact human society. In addition, the material base of society, social being also includes natural conditions. Natural conditions include natural phenomena such as weather, climate, ecological factors, etc. Human society can develop quite differently from one another based on the natural conditions. For example, a society which has frequent hurricanes and heavy rainfall might develop much differently from a society which develops in a desert environment. Similarly, geographical circumstances are aspects of a social being, which can affect the development of human society in a significant way. For instance, a human society located on an island near the equator will develop quite differently than a human society in the mountainous region with long, harsh winters. Population is another factor of social being, which can affect the development of human society in various ways. A society which has a much larger population will be able to perform some industrial processes, which a society with a much smaller population might not be able to perform. Population also has a strong correlation with productive forces, since a higher population provides a large supply of human labor. There are many other factors of social being, but the factors listed above are the most essential in determining the material condition of a human society, with the mode of production being the most essential of all. This is because the mode of production can drastically change the ways in which human beings live in terms of material conditions. For example, a nation with a very small population, but with a highly developed capitalist and industrialized mode of production, would likely have a far more productive material base in terms of economic output than the agrarian feudal society, even if the feudal society were to have a much larger population. Material base, dialectical unity. Underneath, social being. Natural conditions and geographical circumstances. The arrows indicate that all those impact each other. All right? Population and other material aspects of humanity all have a dialectical unity for social being. All aspects of social being exist in a dialectical unity with one another and mutually develop each other over time. All aspects of social being, mode of production, natural conditions, geographical circumstances, etc., exist in dialectical unity with one another. To put it another way, these are all internal relations of social being, which defines and develops human society in a material level. If, for example, the population of human society grows, it will impact natural conditions, i.e., humans will use more natural resources, create pollution, etc., just as natural conditions impact the material base, and so on. In terms, the term social consciousness refers to the mental life of society. Social consciousness arises from social being and reflects the different stages of development of social beings. Social consciousness refers to the ideas and mental life shared within and between groups of human beings. Social consciousness is shared through communication and through social activity. Social consciousness includes various forms of social consciousness as discussed in social consciousness is defined by a relationship between a social economic forms, superstructure, and all other aspects of consciousness within that society. Superstructure determines the material base of human society. In class society, a suitable superstructure is created because of objective necessity to defend and stabilize the position of the ruling class.
Oh, yeah.
Joe. There you go. Economic formation, base superstructure impacts each other. Social being and social consciousness. Human existence. Social economic forms are defined by relations between the base and superstructure of society. The base and superstructure are both internal aspects of social beings and social consciousness. Respectively, social being and social consciousness defines human existence.
The Book of Killer Plants. I feel like I've looked for that one before. I feel like that one might be an unbound one.
Social consciousness develops from the lower states of direct and immediate observation of the world
Is that one that's on TikTok or something?
Yes.
The book that's recommended on
of
TikTok?
more abstract
Yes.
Okay.
and general understanding of the world. The lower state of social consciousness is empirical social consciousness, and the higher state is called theoretical social consciousness. So you have concrete, empirical social consciousness develops into abstract, theoretical social consciousness.
It sounds really familiar.
Social knowledge is knowledge which is held collectively within and between human society. Social knowledge can exist at a lower level of development as ordinary social knowledge, or at a higher level
I didn't put it in the unfound book.
of scientific
That's all right. Drew's got it where I can't highlight because I'm too busy holding the camera as close as I can to the picture because I forgot to turn my camera on.
Systematically derived scientific social knowledge.
I got you.
The textbook Philosophy of Marxism-Leninism gives the following definition of ordinary social knowledge. Ordinary social knowledge includes all the knowledge, concepts, etc. of people in a certain community which are formed directly from daily practical activities and which have not yet been systemized or generalized into theory. Ordinary social knowledge often vividly and directly reflects many aspects of people's...
That's okay. What's even worse is me trying to talk and Drew doesn't have their headphones on. So I'm just echoing the whole time.
Daily lives, and often influence daily life. Scientific social knowledge is knowledge that has been developed through more systematic and scientific observations and experiments in which is held socially, based on the content and fields of social life that it reflects scientific social knowledge can include many different forms: political knowledge, legal knowledge, moral knowledge, religious knowledge, aesthetic knowledge, philosophical knowledge,
No luck with the
etc.
Book of Kilograms.
Scientific knowledge develops from
damn it.
ordinary knowledge as groups of humans work
have to
work
buy the
together
damn book.
to
No,
seek
but-
more formal and systematic
Yeah.
understanding
It's probably
of
already
things
in
we
on
experience
Amazon.
in daily life. Correspondence between cognitive
Would
theory,
not-
It would already
dialectical
be in
materialism,
on
and historical materialism. Dialectical materialism. Here we go.
I didn't see it. I scrolled though. I
Dialectical
did a quick
materialism
scroll.
and historical materialism. Concrete,
There's probably a couple
empirical
that are
consciousness,
duplicates in
empirical
that sound
social
book.
consciousnness. Abstract, theoretical consciousness,
Not too worried about
theoretical
putting
social
duplicates in there.
consciousness. All right, here we go. Dialectical materialism, historical materialism. Directly observed, ordinary knowledge, ordinary social knowledge, systematically derived, scientific knowledge, scientific social knowledge.
And I said, sometimes I go looking for one, and
This conception of social consciousness,
not one that somebody
social
might
knowledge
came across.
reflects the more general conception, consciousness, and knowledge described by the cognitive theory of
so I
dialectical
won't put it in
materialism.
unfound.
There is a dialectical unity between social consciousness and individual consciousness. The relationship between
No,
social
not it.
consciousness and individual consciousness is
But it is
the
now.
relationship of private and common. The universal category pair of private and common, oh yeah, they explained it. Private refers to specific things, phenomena, and ideas. Common refers to aspects, factors, and relations shared between private subjects. Social consciousness represents the common aspects of private individual consciousness within a society. In other words, social consciousness encompasses all of ideas, thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, prejudices, and other manifestations of consciousness which are broadly held in common within society. Note that it is not necessary for all members of human society to agree on something for it to be commonly held as social consciousness form
I don't know.
within
I'm
a
having
society.
trouble. I'm
Take,
struggling
for
to hear you.
example, a genre of music. Some
I think
people
I've
may
got
enjoy
headphones
listening
in the
to a
wrong
genre,
ear.
while others might not. What is
I can't get the
held
sound right.
in common,
I'm messing up
regardless,
all over the place.
is awareness,
What'd you say?
the impact which the genre has
That's
on the
one where
society at
sometimes
large,
these things you
including
find
all
and then it leads you
individual
to a spam
human
site.
within
Yeah.
society. Social consciousness, individual consciousness, they live dialectically with each other, as you can see there. I'll read that. The phenomenon of human consciousness is defined by the relationship between the consciousness of individual human beings and social
One of
consciousness.
those dudes tabs.
Individual consciousness and social consciousness have a dialectical relationship with one another, meaning that consciousness of individuals can impact social consciousness and vice versa. The work of a single artist, for example, might impact a wider art movement. A wider art movement will also impact work of individual
I just turned you away now.
artists.
I just have
Generally
to keep
speaking,
up with
throughout
it.
history, and even today, human
It's just
beings
I'm
have
taking
not been
notes
fully
and
aware of
talking
the true
and
relationship
listening.
between social beings and social consciousness. As Lenin explained in Materialism and Imperial
And
Criticism,
recording.
in all social
Which means I think
formations
I'm on
of
the
any
camera. I
complexity,
think I'm on the recording.
and
instead of talking
in
myself
in
out.
the capitalist social formation of particular,
We haven't talked
people
about anything private, right?
people in their intercourse are
No.
not conscious of what kind of social relations are being formed in accordance with that law they develop, etc. For instance, a peasant, when he sells his grain, enters into intercourse with the world producers of grain in the world market. He is not conscious of it, nor is he conscious of the kind of social relations that are formed on the basis of exchange. Social consciousness reflects social beings. That is Marx's teaching. Reflection may be a proximately true copy of the reflected, but to speak of identity is absurd. Consciousness is general reflects beings. That is a general principle of all materialism. It is possible not to see its direct and inseparable connections with the principle of historical materialism. Social consciousness reflects social being. So we're getting this, right? Social consciousness reflects social being. Social consciousness has a very complex structure. The structure of social consciousness can be analyzed from many different perspectives, including, not but limiting to, aspects of social consciousness, empirical social consciousness versus theoretical social consciousness, social psychology versus social ideology, class analysis of social consciousness. Each of these perspectives of analyze is described in more details below. A perspective or worldview is the starting point of analysis. Various perspectives of social consciousness exist, and these perspectives develop over time. The perspectives of social consciousness, which follows, are those which are most relevant to historical materialist analysis, aspects of social consciousness. One can analyze different aspects of social consciousness. Each aspect of social consciousness is a reflection of a corresponding aspect of social being. For instance, political being is reflected as political consciousness. Legal being is reflected as legal consciousness. Moral being is reflected as moral consciousness. Religious being is reflected as religious consciousness. Aesthetic being is reflected as aesthetic
Don't send it to me yet.
Scientific being is
Don't send it
reflected
to
as
me there.
scientific consciousness, etc.
It'll pop up on my screen.
Aspects of social consciousness include such
Yeah, it'll just
phenomena
show up
as
as-
art,
Your
music,
Discord name will show up,
scientific
though.
understanding, political ideology, etc.
Oh, it's okay.
There are countless ways in which human beings have
But that way you can decide
categorized
if I should put that one in there later.
a grouped together aspect of social consciousness. But it must be understood that all of these aspects exist dialectical unity with each other. For example, advances in scientific understanding have led to new techniques and ideas about art movements can impact political movements, and so on. In addition, all of these aspects of social consciousness are determined by social being. For example, certain forms of art could not have existed without prerequisite developments of social being, i.e., photographs could not have existed before the invention and existence of technologies such as a camera and a photographic process. The modern music industry, as it exists today, could not have developed before the development of technologies like recording music, as well as the development of the capitalist mode of production. Empirical social consciousness versus theoretical social consciousness. The key word is consciousness, everybody. Over time, I guess I didn't get that restriction taken out. Over time, aspects of social consciousness will reflect the social base from lower to higher levels. That is to say, with increasing sophistication and accuracy. Social consciousness can be analyzed based on this level of reflection of the social base. This analysis requires distinguishing between empirical social consciousness, theoretical social consciousness. Empirical social consciousness is sum total of the knowledge, conceptions of people in certain communities. It is formed directly from daily practical activities which are not yet systemized or generalized into theory. Theoretical social consciousness includes ideas and concepts. Oh my gosh, again!
You're not even going to
The
have help
fuck?
anymore.
Stop doing this, TikTok. You allow other people
Make
to
it
not
look-
show their
Stop doing that.
face all the fucking time. Theoretical social consciousness includes ideas and conceptions which have been systemized and generalized into social theories, presenting in the forms of concepts and categories and law. Theoretical social consciousness has the ability to reflect objective reality in a general, profound, and accurate way. It can outline
You have to say
essential
consciousness another
relationships,
8,000
things, and
times.
phenomena
Please stop saying it
within a
wrong.
society. Once theoretical social consciousness reaches a height enough level, it becomes possible for systematically formed ideologies to develop. As discussed previously,
It's
in
so
annotation
annoying.
61,
It's so annoying.
empirical social consciousness, theoretical social consciousness are
They're doing it
concepts
again.
which closely
They're doing it
relate
again.
to corresponding psychological concept
really
of
glad I can't
empirical
hear.
consciousness and theoretical
I'm gonna
consciousness.
leave.
From the cognitive theory of dialectical materialism, social consciousness is the higher form, individual
stop.
consciousness, as it reflects the collective development of material life of human beings across society. What'd you say?
You keep saying it wrong, and it's
It's what?
not funny. Sorry, I don't find it
What am I
humorous.
keep saying? What am I don't know what you're talking about.
No, now Drew doesn't know what I'm talking about. They're going consciousness,
I don't know what you're talking about.
but they don't know what
are
I'm
you
talking about.
What's
Why
wrong?
they say that?
Put it out
You
for
have to
them.
tell me in order for me to know what to change.
Oh, the consciousness. That.
It's because I'm saying it over and over and over and over and over.
I know, and now you're
Right.
saying it over and over and over and over again wrong.
Okay, empirical social consciousness. Empirical consciousness describes consciousness,
They're
which
doing it
reflects the
again.
process of collecting data
I'm just
about
leave.
the world through observation, experimentation, and practice.
They can do it.
Empirical social
themselves.
consciousness is empirical consciousness, which human beings have
Do it again,
developed
Drew.
collectively through social processes into the higher social forms. Theoretical social consciousness, along the same line, theoretical
I'm dying.
consciousness is the indirect, abstract, and systematic level of perception in which the nature and laws of things and phenomena are generalized and abstracted. Theoretical social consciousness is theoretical consciousness which human beings have developed collectively through social processes into the higher social forms of consciousness. Why did you leave? Developing the social consciousness, just as empirical consciousness develops into theoretical consciousness as a individual psychological phenomenon, empirical social consciousness also develops into the higher forms of theoretical social consciousness. Theoretical consciousness arises from conscious reflections of the accumulated knowledge as human beings seek to develop general and abstract understanding of the underlying principles of processes we experience in the world. The highest form of theoretical social consciousness is ideology.
Do you think they're even know they're
In
doing
the
that
article
anymore?
Social Consciousness in
they've
Marxist
done it so
Leninism
many
by
fucking
Dr.
times.
Niewenge, Tai Hong Van, professor of science and technology of post and telecommunication
We have
institutions
to say
and
consciousness
technologies in
another
Hanoi,
3,000 times in this
explains the concept of individual and ideologies in more detail. Don't know why you left. Just reading the book.
chapter. No, you're not.
Ideology is a higher level of social consciousness, formed when people are more aware in their material living conditions. Ideology has the ability to dabble deeply into the nature of subjects, including social relationships. Ideology is a theoretical perception of social existence, a system of ideological views, political, philosophical, ethical, artistic, religious, and so on. That is the result of the generalization of the social experience. Ideology is form of self-consciously. That is to say, it is a form of propagating in society through social activities, which is conscious and intentional. Ideology, through highly developed consciousness, is not necessarily true and accurate scientific consciousness. It can indeed constitute false consciousness, which is consciousness that is misaligned with reality, as Dr. Niewenge explains. When studying ideologies, it is necessary to distinguish between scientific and non-scientific ideology. Scientific ideology accurately and objectively reflects the material relationships of society. Unscientific ideology also reflects material and social relationships, but a false, illusory, and objectively distorted form. As a part of social consciousness, ideology greatly influenced the development of science. For instance, throughout history, natural science has been highly influenced by ideology. Philosophical consciousness, in particular, plays an important role in the process of generalizing scientific research. Don't know why you left. Sego, hey, you changed your picture. What the hell? What the hell? What the hell? What the hell? Social psychology versus social ideology.
These are all
Social
different
consciousness can reflect social beings with varying degrees of directness or indirectness. Social consciousness, which reflects social beings directly, as social psychology, while social consciousness, which reflects social being directly, is social ideology. Social psychology is the whole emotional life, mood, aspirations, will, etc. of certain human communities. Social psychology is a direct and spontaneous reflection of living situations of the human beings who compose a society. Social ideology is the entire system of social conception and viewpoints such as politics, philosophy, ethics, arts, religion, etc. It is an indirect of and self-conscious reflection of social being. Social psychology and social ideology are two levels, two different modes of reflection of social consciousness for the same social beings. They have the dialectical relations with each other, but social psychology does not produce social ideology. The relationship between social psychology and social ideology is explained more in philosophy of Marxist-Leninism. Social psychology includes all emotions, desire, moods, habits, and so on, which belongs to a segment of people or all of society. Social psychology is formed under the direct influence of the daily life of people, and it reflects that life. The characteristics of social psychology is that it directly reflects people's daily living conditions. It is the spontaneous reflection, often recording the superficial aspects of social existence. It is incapable of fully, clearly, and deeply outlining the natural of human social relationships. Human concepts of social psychology are still experimental and have not been expressed theoretically. This means that intellectual factors are intertwined with emotional factors. However, the important role of social psychology in the development of social consciousness cannot be denied. Karl Marx, Engels, and Lenin, and Ho Chi Minh attached great importance to the study of people's socio-psychological state in order to understand the people, educate the people, and bring them to actively and voluntarily participate in the struggle for a better society. Ideology is a social consciousness that has attained some level of theoretical awareness of social beings. Ideology is a system of viewpoints and ideas of politics, philosophy, ethics, arts, religion, etc. that are the result of generalization of social experience. Ideology is a form of consciously, that is to say, ideology is created by ideologues of certain classes and propagated in society. It is necessary to distinguish between scientific ideology and non-scientific ideology. Scientific ideology accurately and objectively reflects the material relationships of society. Non-scientific ideology also reflects the material relationships of society, but in a false, illusory, and distorted form. As a component of social consciousness, ideology greatly influenced the development of science. The history of natural science has shown the important effect of ideology, especially philosophical ideology, on the process of generalizing scientific research and understanding. Although social psychology and social ideology exist at two levels and as two different modes of reflection of social consciousness, they have a dialectical relationship with each other. They have the same origins, which is social beings. They both reflect social beings. Social psychology can contribute to favorable conditions for class members to absorb class ideology. This can work for or against the development of class consciousness. And it works. For example, a ruling class may offer benefits to the oppressed class to reduce or inhibit the development of class consciousness. If conditions deteriorate so that oppressed classes are more dissatisfied with their lives, class consciousness may develop more readily. It is also impossible for agents of the ruling class to use social psychology to influence and sway an oppressed class into opposing their own class interests. For instance, the capitalist class might work to convince workers that their problems stem from other social groups or phenomenons to keep them from understanding the nature of class society. False consciousness is often used to divide workers and prevent workers from resisting capitalism. The textbook, Philosophy of Marxist-Leninism, explains how scientific consciousness, which accurately reflects reality, can help to develop class consciousness. Developing a closer relationship between ideology, especially progressive scientific ideology, the social psychology, and with a lively and rich social life will help make social ideology, in theory, less rigid and less faulty. Similarly, social ideology and social theory increases the intellectual aspect of social psychology. Scientific ideology promotes and develops the development of social psychology in a correct and healthy direction, which is beneficial to social progress. Anti-scientific and reactionary ideology stimulates the development of more negative elements of social psychology. However, it must be understood that ideology does not stem directly from social psychology, nor is it a direct expression of social psychology. In other words, it is impossible for social psychology and ideology to be at odds with each other. Workers may suffer from capitalist oppression, yet still adopt ideologies which constitutes false consciousness, and this may lead them to support the varying systems of which oppresses them. Similarly, it is also possible for workers to live relatively comfortable lives, to have scientific consciousness, which allows them to understand the systems of capitalism for what it is, and to hold progressive views up to and including class consciousness of philosophy. And Marxist-Leninism explains an ideology that reflects contemporary relationships also inherits previously existing social theories, ideas, and perspectives. For example, medieval religion ideology in Western Europe expressed the interests of the feudal class, but has born directly from idealist philosophical ideas from ancient times. Of course, thank you. From ancient times. Where was I at? For example, medieval religion ideologies in Western Europe expressed the interests of feudal classes, but was born directly from the idealist philosophical ideas from ancient times and Christian ideology from earlier Christian era. The Marxist-Leninist ideology was not directly born from the social psychology of the working class, which was spontaneously fighting against the bourgeoisie at that time, but was the theoretical generalization from the totality of human knowledge, from the experience of the class struggle of the working class, which at the same time directly inherited the social, economic, and philosophical theories of the late 18th and 19th centuries. Thus, we can see that social ideology is organically related to social psychology and is influenced by social psychology, but it is not simply a condensation of social psychology. Ho Chi Minh explains the importance of a deeply understanding of social psychology of the working class in context of building socialism, writing in the modified the working style. The people are very clever, very enthusiastic, very heroic. Therefore, we communist cadres must learn from the people, ask why people understand the people. Every slogan, every project, every policy must rely on the ideas and experience of the people. We must listen to the people's desire. However, this does not mean that we will follow blindly whatever the people say. Cadres must have our own ways of discerning. This means we must discern ideas carefully. We must analyze carefully all classes of the people. In class-based society, social consciousness is also class-based, reflecting different and even opposing material living conditions and interests between classes. Each class has its own specific mental life. But the ideology that dominates society is always the ideology of the ruling class. The critique of political economy, Karl Marx discussed how social consciousness emerged from and is determined by the material reality, the mode of production of material life conditions, the general process of social, political, and intellectual life. It is not the consciousness of men that determine their existence, but their social existence that determines their consciousness. In class society, class consciousness is a form of social consciousness, which reflects class struggle. Class consciousness plays an important role in the development of human society from one mode of production to the next. This is because class consciousness is a prerequisite of social revolution. As productive forces develop, they eventually clash with existing relations of production, leading to new relations of production. This reflects the law of instability, of suitability. This change in the base drives transformation in the superstructure per the law of the base determines the superstructure of society. Here we go. We have one. We have some pictures since the person that helps me left. Here we go. Number one. The productive forces develop to the point that they are no longer suitable with the relations of production. See, development into feudal to now capitalist. This is number two. This creates an objective need for new relations of production. Number three. New revolutionary classes emerge, which is more suitable to productive forces. Class consciousness emerges within new revolutionary classes. We should rule society. Number five, class consciousness leads to social revolution. Revolutionary class becomes new ruling class, bourgeoisie state. The construction through revolution. Then, new relations of production are now suitable with productive forces. Society stabilizes and development continues. Suitability to there. Okay. I don't know why my friend left. I wish they didn't leave. Oh yeah, do that.
How do you
All right. In order for the revolutionary. Oh my God. Did the thing again. Hold on, everybody. Settings. Is it settings? No. Come on. It's settings. Comment setting. There we go. Bring it back. Go to settings. Go to comment settings. Put them back on. Sorry, everybody. Eventually, new revolutionary classes will emerge, which is more suitable to newly formed productive forces and relations of production. In time, the revolutionary class will develop its own social consciousness and an awareness of itself as a class. This is referred to the class consciousness. This class society, social consciousness, has a class character, meaning that different classes will think differently about society, the world, and each other. However, it must be understood that the ruling class of the given society shapes the predominant social consciousness of that society, as Marx explains in Critique of Political Economy. Just as one does not judge an individual by what he thinks about himself, so one cannot judge such a period of transformation by its consciousness, but on the material life, from the conflict existing between the social forces of production and the relations of production. No social order is ever destroyed before all the productive forces for which it is sufficient have been developed. The new superior relations of production never replace older ones before the material conditions of their existence have matured within the framework of the old society. This is why all philosophies and ideologies must be studied in context of class society and material conditions from which they have emerged, and also why study of philosophy and ideology attached from class analysis is a useless pursuit. Class consciousness plays a specific role in the development of class society because the development of class consciousness by the revolutionary class is prerequisite to social revolution. Marx cautioned that we must not mistake the necessity for class consciousness to precede social revolution for the idealist position. For an idealist position. The weapons of criticism cannot, of course, replace criticism by weapons. Material forces must be overthrown by material force. By theory also becomes a material force as soon as it has gripped the masses. Theory is capable of gripping the masses as soon as it demonstrates ad hominem, and it demonstrates an ad hominem as soon as it becomes radical. To be radical is to grasp the roots of the matter. When Marx says the theory must grip the masses ad hominem, he means that a theory must manifest in actual life conditions and conscious activities of the masses. It is not enough for the masses to simply be aware of their own class position and their historical mission to enact social revolution. They must bring these ideas to life by building institutions capable of revolutionary struggles. These institutions, the most important is the state, because it allows the class to control the means of production in order to build a state which represents its own class interests. Advanced elements of the revolutionary class must build a revolutionary institutions, i.e. revolutionary parties, and our corresponding revolutionary ideology, i.e. revolutionary theory. To make class consciousness a material force, revolutionary theory must serve to develop and install class consciousness. Widely within the revolutionary classes and a party is necessary to allow advanced elements of the revolutionary class to struggle and enact social revolution. As Lenin explains in What Is There to Be Done, without revolutionary theory, there can be no revolutionary movement. The role of the vanguard fighter can be fulfilled only by a party that is guided by the most advanced theory. If the objective economic conditions of society demand it, i.e., if the economic base is no longer suitable for the superstructure of society, and eventually through the construction of a revolutionary theory which is put into practice by a revolutionary party, the revolutionary class will eventually develop revolutionary theory and a revolutionary party which will be guided, which will guide the masses to a new stage of development. The revolutionary class will become the new ruling class. This is a process of development reflects the law of suitability, which is discussed in annotation note. Let me look ahead real quick.
Anything different from a man?
154. If anybody can help me remember 154.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's a man or not. No.
154. Okay. 154.
Yeah, see?
154. Too far. So I think right here, this might be a good stopping point. 154, right? 154.
Like I did the same.
154. Let me look.
I turned the car around, went the kids to go to the center. You know?
Yeah.
So what's done is what I'm doing. You know?
I think we're stopping here. Thank God.
Yeah, I think this might be a good stopping point right here. Right here. We're stopping on 154. In a militant agreement for the uprising is where we're going to stop. Because that seems like a good stopping point. Okay, let me put a bookmark in. Adding. I want you to add a bookmark. Add a bookmark. Let's look at bookmarks. Bookmarks. Delete. All right. Does anybody want to come up?
No.
Have any questions?
Mad.
Want to talk about what we just talked about?
Okay.
I'll give it a couple seconds to see if anyone wants to come up and talk about what we just talked about.
Mad. So angry. No control over my emotions right now.
Breathe.
All right then. So if no one wants to come up and do anything, I'll let everybody go. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your.
Breathing at the play. Okay, you stopped the recording.
Yep. No. I just stopped